The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here comes pressure, throws it to Eckler on the screen. He's got a block to the 10, to the 5, into the end zone.
High pass. Did Williams make that catch? My goodness.
For a first down, Herbert with time. Now running out of time. Throws on the run. Down the sideline. Caught in the end zone. Keenan Allen for the touchdown.
Throws, and again it's intercepted. And that's Asante Samuel.
Here's another one. Watch out.
How did it feel when Derwin James absolutely powerbombed the out of you on national television?
You're listening to the Shock Therapy Podcast with Tyler Lawrence and Zach Alfers.
What's up, Zach? How was your weekend? How are you doing today? What's been going on, man? Can you not hear me?
I can hear you now. I don't. There was
As I was saying, how was your day, man?
What's going on?
How was your weekend? How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. I feel like last weekend was better with the 4th of July going on. This weekend's just slow, nothing crazy. It's not 115 degrees out here in Sacramento, which is nice. Just taking it easy. What's up with you? I heard you got back from a wedding.
Yeah, so I just got back from a wedding last night. Moved kind of slow this morning. I love Hispanic weddings, man. They are popping. They are popping. There's something about the salsa music, and man, it's just such a great time. I love Mexican weddings because they are always so much fun. You get the little streamers out, sitting there doing some salsa dancing, listening to some Pitbull, listening to whatever we're listening to. It was a great time. I'm still hungover.
I feel like it's 9:15 on a Sunday. Coming off of a holiday weekend, it was a weird week with 4th of July being on Tuesday. So I feel like if you're not hungover, you didn't have a good last couple of weeks. So
yeah, it was a great week. But on the other side of that, we got some football stuff to talk about. I'm super excited to talk about my magazine, which I'm failing to find on my laptop to pull up and show you guys. But the printed copies I should be receiving late next week sometime.
What?
I've already sold like 50 copies, which is awesome. I'm stoked about that. If you guys want a PDF, it's totally free. I give it out to anybody that wants it. The only thing I ask is if you had a chance to read the magazine, just post about it, say something nice about it on Twitter, on Threads, which is now growing, like exploding like crazy. That is the Instagram version of Twitter, which is their timing of coming out with that. Hilarious, because they came out with it the day that Elon Musk was like, hey, you can only look at 100 500 threads or some stupid, and
Which is
that
crazy.
was like the perfect timing for them to like drop their threads.
All I'm gonna say is stop capping the people. You don't get to dictate entertainment. If I want to look at 2,000 tweets a day, I should be able to do so. We never had to deal with this before Elon took over. They're ruining the best platform there is. Now, if Threads is the new one, then I'm down. They're not capping people off. They're not restricting speech. Like I'm all for something new because Twitter is like
I feel like it's dying.
unrecognizable.
I feel like Twitter is starting to die out with all the dumb things that they're doing right now. I don't get it. I don't understand what he's getting from that. It's strange to limit free speech like that.
No,
So
it's crazy.
I don't get it.
Look, switching topics. Let's talk about this magazine.
Yeah, so here's a picture of the magazine. I did the artwork myself. Doesn't look as great as it did last year, but I think I still did a pretty snappy job with it. So this thing is 60 pages. We start off talking about LaDainian Tomlinson, a lifetime achievement. All of the great things he was able to achieve during his career. I start off talking about his home life growing up into high school, going to TCU, having a fantastic career in the NFL. And then I even talk about some of the charity work he does off the field, and his enshrinement into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All of the great things about LaDainian Tomlinson. He's really a great human being. Like, you couldn't ask to talk to a better type of guy, or have that type of guy on your team for 10 years or however long he played for the Chargers. And then I just get right into talking about the AFC arms race that you saw last year. Didn't really come to be as strong as we all expected it to be, but the Chiefs, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers, they all stacked a lot of money last year to go and try to be competitive. In the end, it was the Chargers and the Chiefs ended up making the playoffs. The Broncos fell flat on their face, and then the Raiders also just were not that good last year. And then I go into weeks 1 through 18 and the wild card game. I talk about each and every game, kind of broke down, why the Chargers lost those games. In week 7, we had Jamal Williams inducted into the Chargers Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Big deal.
So I talk a little bit about that. In week 7, he was enshrined at the Seahawks game. I wasn't actually at that game. That was one of the games I missed last season, but something I thought was worthy to talk about. And then we talk about the Chargers offseason moves, basically a reload for 2023. We had a article donated by one of our very own Charger fans. He donated an article about the Air Coryell era of Chargers football. As we all know, Don Coryell is headed to Canton, something that was long overdue. And then I talk about the 2023 NFL draft. I talk about Quentin Johnson, Thule, Diane Henley, Darius Davis, Jordan McFadden, Scott Matlock, and Max Duggan. And then I gave a short letter to the fans. And I will just cycle through this real quick. You didn't get a chance to actually read this yet. Sorry, I apologize. I was kind of running short on time, but I did email you a copy, I believe. Have you had a chance to take a look at this thing yet?
You sent me the LT article, which all I want to say, LT is my first and favorite athlete. That growing up, LT was the first guy I was like, yes, that man is what I want to model my life about, because not only was he an absolute record breaker on the field, he was really one of the first people who with stardom who you saw getting out in the community. Every Thanksgiving, he was in San Diego passing out turkeys. Every holiday, it was Christmas. He was out there just handing out gifts. As a guy from Texas, he gets drafted by San Diego. When he was not playing football, when he didn't have the lightning bolt on his chest, he was giving back to the community. So there's nothing bad that you can say about that man. An absolute one of the best running backs to ever play, one of the best football players to ever play. And on top of that, a Walter Peyton, a humanitarian award winner. This man has done so much for his community, and he continues to do that. What a stand-up guy, and what a great person to model a franchise around. One of my biggest regrets in life is the fact that we couldn't get that 12-4 team led by LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, Phillip Rivers. That team did not win a Super Bowl. That's all I can say.
It's wild. It is wild that team did not win a Super Bowl. I said that we had an article donated by a fan. I was trying to figure out how to say his last name. I don't really know how to say it, but Dominic Mudiacito. Sorry for butchering that. I don't think we had a chance. Actually,
it's a great last name. I would like to know how to pronounce that.
But Dominic is a terrific writer. Somebody over at the what is the website called? Riverslake.org. So he's a writer over there for riverslake.org. He's an incredible writer. Probably he is way better than anything that I could write. Just the way that he puts words together is just fantastic. It's incredible. So he wrote an entire article on the Don Coryell era of football. A lot of interesting, cool facts. Like, I don't know if you knew this or not, but did you know that Sid Gillman, who the Chargers won an AFC championship with in 1963, and Don Coryell actually coached against each other in an exhibition game? So Don Coryell was a football coach for the Fort Ord football team, which was like a military football team. They scrimmaged against the Los Angeles Rams when Sid Gillman was the head coach there. So just something like super, super interesting that ended up happening. Two legendary Charger coaches. I didn't know that. So he did all that kind of research. And he really dives deep into like the Don Coryell era of football. And then I'm just going to cycle through the rest of this real quick. But I've gone and shown everybody this magazine in under a minute. I'll get that over to you, Zach, because I think that you definitely want to read this. My letter to the fans, and then our schedule on the back page. So thank you to everybody who's already purchased. I've already sold 40, almost 50 copies. I've got about 50 left to sell and give out. So let me know when you guys want that, and I'll get that over to you. The PDFs, 100% free. The physical copies, I sign every copy on the front page. Those are going to be $15. That includes shipping. Basically, it's just it's me. It's paying me back for the print job because it's expensive to mail it and to get it printed. Plus, the amount of time and effort that goes into this thing takes me. I mean, I started this thing in November last year, so it's a huge, and it's my last edition because I don't know if I want to keep doing it because it's a long time commitment. Let's go ahead and talk about the Broncos. That's the team that we're breaking down this week. Kind of give you a brief overview of what happened. So the Broncos, they lost Melvin Gordon. They added Samaje Perine. They lost Dalton Reisner. They added guard Ben Jones. They lost offensive tackle Billy Turner. They added Mike McGlinchey. They lost Draymond Jones. They added Deshaun Williams, Zach Allen, and Frank Clark. They lost Ronald Darby. And then they drafted their big draft picks are going to be Marvin Mims, Drew Sanders, and cornerback Riley Moss. And really, like, makes me wonder, like, is this team better than it was last year? I feel like they got better at almost all those positions across the board. Plus, they're going to get the development of their young tight end, their young edge rushers, and their secondary. I think that overall it's a more talented team on paper. What are your thoughts about the Broncos as we head into the 2023 season?
I kind of want to. I think I agree with you. The fact that they got stronger at most positions. I love their depth at edge. It doesn't show up on that transaction list because it was a mid-season thing. Losing Bradley Chubb is an identity type of difference, and their defense didn't stutter at all last year without the Frank Clarks, without all of that young depth behind it. Still, Bradley Chubb is one of the premier pass rushers. You looking back on all of the competitive Broncos teams, not only did you have one great pass rusher, they had a couple. And Frank Clark at this point in his career, Zach Allen at this point in his career, I don't think they got their go-to guy. I think they got a very, very deep group. I think it's very similar to the receiving core where it's really good. I like all of the guys. There's no superstar. So I think the biggest move is that you got Sean Peyton as head coach. I think that's going to bring
huge. That
is huge, especially because the Broncos every year have a strong defense. They have a strong running game. It's when you can filter in a great quarterback and run an explosive offense when they get scary. And if anybody can bring that back out of Russell Wilson, it's Sean Peyton.
Yeah, I totally get the Sean Payton signing. I mean, you're talking about a team that finished 5-12 last season, 4th in the AFC West. They scored the least amount of points in the NFL last year under Nathaniel Hackett, who's supposed to be an offensive guru. Like, that should not have happened. And that was his first and only season as head coach for a reason. They finished 14th out of 32nd in points against, which you take into effect that their defense was constantly on the field. That's not that bad. They finished better than average with playing more on defense than any other team in the NFL. If the Broncos could have sustained longer drives, kept defenses off the field, they easily could have been a top 10, potentially top 5 unit. After a single season as head coach, Hackett was fired, and the Broncos roster, it just was much better than the team that they fielded out there, because that roster is really loaded with a lot of good players. Probably only like 2 to 3 blue chip players. You're talking about Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, and Russell Wilson, depending on what version of Russell Wilson you're getting. But I mean, there's a lot of really, really good young players: Javonte Williams, Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich, Lloyd Cushenberry, Quinn Meiners, Baron Browning, and then that duo at linebacker of Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton. I mean, it's a really, really solid, above average group of players, lacking the high end superstar, the blue chip players. But overall, like their coaching is going to turn some of those guys into some absolute dogs.
Yeah, I'm kind of not. We talked about the Raiders last week. I think you have to respect the Chiefs until they're unrespectable. The Broncos are a scary team, right? Like, we were talking about the AFC West arms race. We thought last year, with the addition of Russell Wilson, that this was going to be one of the best divisions in football, and it didn't really stack up to that, because you got you had one really great team, you had one team not really living up to expectations, and then you had 2 teams really falling flat in the Raiders and the Broncos. I don't see that happening this year. I think this is the year we see that AFC arms race really turn into a dogfight. And over the Raiders, the Chiefs are going to be them. The Broncos are scary because they don't give up a lot of points. They ended up the year giving up 20 points a game. That was with like 2 33-point blowups at the end of the year. At 10 games through the year, they were giving up like 18 points a game. If Russell Wilson could just throw 1 touchdown a game, if he just averaged 1 touchdown a game, that would have been a playoff team. They're not far away. They went and go and get the most sought-after coach to add to it. Don't do a whole lot. They don't lose a whole lot of people. The Broncos are scary. They only have
a ton of talent.
They have a ton of talent. They only have themselves to lose to. They're set up for a very, very positive year. No one's really talking about them like last year. Everyone was talking about, Broncos are a Super Bowl favorite. You don't hear that chatter. Taking all of that pressure off a team like this' shoulders is dangerous. So I'm excited as like a competitor to see what happens. They're a potential scary team. Like, don't sleep on the Denver Broncos.
No, they could definitely be scary. Talk a little bit about their quarterback situation. So Russell Wilson, Jarrett Stidham. What did the Broncos give up to go and get Russell Wilson? So they ended up getting Russell Wilson and a nose tackle named Iyoama Awuzurike, who's like a 4th-round draft pick for them. What did the Seahawks get? They got offensive tackle Charles Cross, cornerback Devin Witherspoon, edge rusher Boye Mafe, edge rusher Derek Hall, linebacker Tyreek Smith, tight end Noah Fant, quarterback Drew Lock, and Shelby Harris. All of those guys for Russell Wilson and a nose tackle who played like 200 snaps for them last year. That's insane. Like, I don't know any team desperate for a quarterback that would like give all that up?
It's a lot. And credit to the Seahawks though, because all of those draft picks, I
They
think
nailed them all.
all of them. All of them. And what I think you asked at the top of that question, did the Broncos give up their future? If
Yeah.
Russell Wilson can't give them they went all in on Russell Wilson's going to give me a Super Bowl ring. I don't think that was the time to do it. When Patrick Mahomes we could only expect the pinnacle of his career, if not only excelling. You have Justin Herbert, this emerging superstar quarterback, surrounded by all of this talent.
Is there
And
a
you
quarterback you would make that trade for?
No,
Anyone, any
I don't
player?
think. No, because
Like if it was like, would you trade Patrick Mahomes for Charles Cross, Devin Witherspoon, Boy Mafe, Derek Hall, Tyreek Smith, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris? Because nobody cares about Drew Lock. Like, are you making that trade? Because that's
the
like
thing is,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 starters with a couple role players.
no, it's tough to pull the trigger on something like that. I think what we saw was a front office in the Broncos who thought they were a Russell Wilson away from being Super Bowl competitive. So if that's really what you think you're missing, which I thought they were missing a MVP type of quarterback to piece it all together.
I think they were missing a coach is what they were really missing.
Yeah. Well, but that's like as a front office, you set all of that up. So I don't know. You're spitting a message to the fan base and the organization that it's not my fault. It's who we have in place. It's not my system. It's the quarterback.
Right.
And we found out that there's a little bit of both. It is the personnel and it is the system. And so now there's no excuses. You got your guy. You got one of the best coaches in football for the last 10, 15 years. If you guys win 5 games this year, like it's only on you, and you're going to be really bad for a long time, given the draft capital and all of those chips that you gave up to make this work.
The only thing that kind of prevents me from saying, they're done is just how the Saints had built their roster through free agents, trading away draft picks, pushing cap into future years. But at some point, that bill always comes due, and you saw it happen. The Saints
Sean
had to
Peyton
give up.
dipped.
Yeah.
As soon as he was ready, as soon as he was like, I have to take the brunt of all the decisions I made, he retired. And not retired, he retired and was like, but
he took a sabbatical leave.
Yeah, but if you guys want to trade me and give up your whole future for me, I will come back. Like, also Sean Peyton, I think he's a great coach. That was a really, really bum way to go out, I think. You casualtied the Saints. Run through it or
destroy them.
You got to play through it. Like I don't know. And he got his Super Bowl ring. Good for him. Like,
but it's one ring. If you really think about the success that the Saints had, right? Like, you had the 1 year where they won the Super Bowl. You had a couple years where they missed playoffs entirely, and then they never made it back. Like, Sean Payton's a great, one-hit wonder. Because, like, I don't take anything away. I think he's a terrific coach. Everybody has nothing but good things to say about him, even after the whole targeting where he got suspended for the year for paying players for injuring players, which
is crazy,
wild, and never talked about anymore. Like, nobody talks about that anymore.
On TV, they seen him with a microphone next to Adam Schefter, and they're like, "Oh, we can't talk about how shitty he was."
And then, so let's get back onto the topic of Russell Wilson. So, after the Broncos traded for Russell Wilson, they gave him a 5-year, $242 million contract that averages $50 million a year and hasn't even started yet. He's still on the 4-year, 140 contract with the Seahawks. He is under contract till 2029. So they are tied to him for until 2025, where they can cut him with a manageable $31 million dead cap.
Manageable 31. Actually, at that time, what did you say? When does that due?
So his contract starts next season and goes until 2029. So 2024 to 2029. So he's still on the Seahawks. They gave him a 4-year 140. So that's what, like 30, 60, 90, 120, 40 million a year, just about.
You said manageable
35 million a year.
31. In 2029, 31 million might be just one of those veteran minimums. What do we get?
Yeah.
I saw a big reaction.
So my wife came in and brought me. So I made coffee this morning, but I forgot my cup.
French press.
French press. I
Press
was
it.
running short on time. Sweet.
Yeah, I couldn't make a coffee, so I had to go with a morning beer.
Hey, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
That's what I'm trying to tell everybody.
Let's go. All right. So, Russell Wilson, there's a whole awkward team dynamic. He had his own office in the Broncos facility on the coach's floor.
Weird.
Super weird. Had his own personal team of coaches and trainers that were apart from the Broncos staff that came in and did work with him. He was basically given the keys to design and implement exactly what he wanted in the offense, took over coaching duties and set himself up like on a pedestal. Like, coaches should just they should take input from their quarterback and not just hand the keys over. Like, Russell Wilson, not going to get hired on as an offensive coordinator anywhere after his one season as offensive coordinator last year for himself. It just created a weird team dynamic, and I think there was a major talking point in Sean Peyton coming in and just undoing everything Russell Wilson had put into place and just fixing all those issues. Kind of want to just close the Russell Wilson story out here and just talk about the fact that, he had an offensive-minded head coach last year. He had a really bad offensive line that was really injured. We'll talk about that a little bit. Their star running back gets hurt, first 2 or 3 games into the season.
That was no good.
The offense was a complete mess. It wasn't all on Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson bit off more than he could chew and then realized that he had to keep chewing through the rest of the season and just couldn't swallow it at any point throughout the whole year. And it really led to a really bad situation for the Broncos. I think it's going to be a much better, much more improved team offensively, and he's got a lot more around him to really, take that step into being the quarterback that everybody wanted him to be. The weird social media stuff, Broncos fans, let's ride, like practicing walking out of the tunnel, like just weird stuff that he was just doing I haven't heard anything like that this season. So
pass sets on the plane.
Quiet.
We don't even talk about pass sets on the plane is insane. How are you going to go through
on the plane?
He was going through like dropbacks on the plane in between.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
there's just so much. I'm not surprised, but
there's so much of it. But there's one story. All the linemen are passed out because they're big dudes and on like a little charter plane. So they all have their legs out in the aisle, and Russell Wilson was tripping on them doing his drop backs.
That's
3-step,
wild,
5-step. Yeah. Insane.
He's not a real person.
He's a robot. As soon as he married Ciara, he became a robot.
I just don't get it. Let's talk about the running back situation. Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, Tony Jones, Tyler Batty. Williams played just 4 games for the Broncos before tearing his ACL. In 47 attempts, he averaged 4.3 yards per carry. He was just unable to get into the end zone for whatever reason those first couple of games. His yards after contact per attempt, 3.49 yards, which would have ranked him in the top 20 last year. had 16 missed tackles forced in basically 3 games. If you project that forward, he's leading the NFL in total missed tackles forced. He's a really, really good running back. He also had 7 runs over 10 yards in 4 games. So, like, he was explosive. Latavius Murray, who ended up being the Broncos starter last season, had 4 times the number of attempts and only had 16 missed tackles forced. So Javonte Williams and what he would have brought to that team for a full season, I mean, I don't know why his hype has died down as much as it has, because Javonte Williams was a first-round draft pick in every fantasy league last season, and now I don't think he's the top 10 running back taken. So it's wild, especially take into account that, Melvin Gordon no longer there stealing snaps in the goal line kind of area. We'll see how they utilize Samaje Perine, but I think there's a really, really good running back, really young running back coming off a major injury. He's got a lot to prove, and that's dangerous.
I love Javonte. I thought that was one of the biggest casualties. You see it every year, just like up and coming superstars who just get a season taken away from them. And when last year, one of the hardest ones to swallow was Javonte. What a great talent. Also, that running back room is a lot different. Because of that injury, they went and got Chase Edmonds, Mike Boone, Marlon Mack, Demaria Crockett. All of those guys are out. And the fact that they didn't go and sign another Samaje Perine is a backup running back. They didn't go out and get another bell cow because they got one. Javonte is a stud. If he's not top 5, he's easily top 10. And the only reason I'm putting him top 10 is because he's coming off an injured, riddled season. He can do a little bit of everything. And you think back to like all of the great Broncos teams. They have a great quarterback. They have a phenomenal defense. They have great coaching, and they got a running back when they're up 20 points that they can just lean on. You're not missing out on Javonte. I hope he's healthy because I think he's better for the NFL. And I'm excited to see what he can do. As a Charger fan who has historically been bad against the run, you're going to have a lot to handle when you go up against the Broncos 2 times this year. Because Javonte Williams is an absolute stud.
And then that's not taking anything away from Samaje Perine. He backed up Joe Mixon last year for the Bengals.
He's
super efficient. Yards after contact, especially, like that was like his bread and butter. Of his 450 total yards last season, 335 came after contact. He runs hard. He's looking for contact. He falls forward. He's a big back, 235 pounds. That's a big boy. And he runs like a big back also. But the other like really under the radar aspect is he's incredibly good catching the ball out of the backfield. Like, 46 of 57 targets, 322 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's a very, very good RB2, a dramatic improvement over Melvin Gordon. I think the biggest thing, like his last fumble was in 2017. So like he doesn't put the ball on the ground. He's a guy you want running between the tackles and the red zone. I think he's probably going to take some snaps away from Javonte Williams in that part of the field, but he's also like a really dangerous dump off option. Like Samaje Perine was really, really good for them last year.
No, I think that room got better. And whenever you go from having to sign 4 running backs midseason because you lose your franchise running back to injury.
And Melvin Gordon is healthy the entire season. They still didn't trust him to take a snap because he had 5. He put the ball on the ground 5 times in like 6 games.
Yeah, well, no, he's burnt. I think that room got better. You also got Michael Burton from the Chiefs at fullback now. A team who will use their fullback.
Under Sean Peyton, they definitely will. Sean Peyton utilizes players in
the red zone.
Ways.
Like this offense is going to be scary. What do? You got a running Russell Wilson still has some legs under him. Javonte Williams can peel you out. You're gonna have Samaje Perine, who's thick and built to deal with. Greg Dulcich. We're gonna get into this receiving core and these pass threats here soon. But like,
let's get into it. Talk about Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, this whole wide receiver, tight end room.
This room is weird to me because it seems for the longest time they're waiting on Jerry Jeudy to become the next Devontae Adams, the next Stephon Diggs. I don't think he's that. I think he's amazing, and I think he's one of the if you can make him your number 2, I would put him up there with some of the best number 2s in the league. You look at the rest of this receiving core. Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton. They signed Marquise Callaway. They drafted Marvin Mims Jr. They got KJ Hamler. This is one of the deepest receiving rooms without a superstar, without a guy I need a play, go make me a play type of guy. I think Jerry Jeudy's the closest. And don't sleep on Cortland Sutton or Tim Patrick. Like when you need them to do something, like they'll do it for you. I just think they're lacking that superstar at the top of the depth chart to kind of lead them and guide them along, because also you're looking at all 6 of these guys very, very young. I think they're desperately lacking a true number 1. I think they have 3 number 3s, or I think they have 3 number 2s, and all of their backups could be legitimate number 3s.
So something interesting with this Broncos wide receiver group. So only Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton were even game planned in their offense last year. Each of them finished with over 100 targets each. Jeudy played evenly inside and out. He was kind of more of their like rack wide receiver. I don't know why he's generating so much hype right now. I think everybody's really expecting him to take that step forward into that, first round pick, kind of stardom. Why? It's his 4th year. He hasn't hit for over 1,000 yards yet. He caught 3 of 11 contested catches last year. 64 of his targets occurred to the short to behind the line of scrimmage kind of area of the field. He's not been as great as the hype that's surrounding him. It's definitely been really disappointing as a wide receiver. One kind of was that for them last year. He's not a great rack, like run after the catch wide receiver. Just wasn't in, like his missed tackles forced really, really low. Not really the gadget player. He's not Deebo Samuel, and that's kind of how they tried to use him last year. Maybe not as like that running back, kind of take snaps from back there, but in terms of the screens, the little bubble screen type dump off plays that they were running to him, just wasn't really working out for him. He's talented. I really liked him coming out of college. I hate the way he's being used in the NFL right now. Cortland Sutton, another really good wide receiver 2 option, has 1,100 season under his belt. That was back in 2019. He's really failed to kind of recapture that form. I think part of the issues are the issues the quarterbacks have had, before Russell Wilson, it was Drew Lock. And I forget the other quarterback who took snaps there, but it just hasn't been good for them. He's going to be their primary X wide receiver. He has 2 games over 25 yards after the catch. He's not a rack wide receiver. He only has like 2 catches of over, run after catch 25 yards. Like that's nothing. He's a catch and fall down kind of player. Had 6 drops last year, which accounts for 9% of his targets. Something that he gets knocked on is his separation. Interesting stat. According to Next Gen Stats, Sutton averaged a separation of 2.7 yards per target. That is more average separation than DK Metcalf, then George Pickens, Michael Gallup, Drake London, Mike Evans, and then here's some really weird ones. Like he was creating more separation than Amari Cooper, a great route runner, really, really good player that we think of as, being able to get separation more than Garrett Wilson. That's wild. And more than Terry McLaurin and Jamar Chase.
Interesting.
So he's getting separation. I just don't think he's had a quarterback that can get him the ball. And it's wild to think because nobody thinks of Cortland Sutton in that tier of wide receivers, especially when it comes to getting separation. He's been able to do it better than some really probably 3 top 10 wide receivers.
And that's where every year we look at this receiving core of the Broncos. I kind of lean towards Cortland Sutton is the baseline guy, right? He's consistent, and you know what you're going to get from him. Jerry Jeudy is what they want to be.
He's their breakout candidate that's
right?
going to
He's the highlight
continually be a
player.
breakout candidate
Yeah.
until he busts.
And all he needs for a good game is a 50-yard reception, and he might get 1 or 2 every other week. Cortland Sutton's going to get his 10 targets, 8 receptions, 100 yards. Like, he's consistent.
Yeah, for sure.
So is Tim Patrick. So is KJ Hamler. Like, they just need to put it together.
But they didn't play them almost at all. They didn't play they threw Tim Patrick 30 targets.
No, well, wasn't he hurt too? I feel like he got hurt early on too.
You're right. He did get hurt. It was here. Let me look it up real quick because I just had it up. But
So
they did not target anybody else.
No, well, because they went Jerry Jeudy went down and then Tim Patrick went down the next week, or it was the vice versa. Like, they lost them both in the first 5 weeks.
Sorry, I take that back. So Kendall Hinton was their next targeted wide receiver with 31 targets, 24 receptions, 311 yards. KJ Hamler had 15 targets, only played 7 games. And I don't think Tim Patrick even played last year.
I think you're right. I think he blew his ACL in training camp.
In training camp, you're right. So he didn't play at all for them. That's why it's so hard to talk about him. And then the other player that we're not even talking about yet is Marvin Mims, who they just drafted. Marvin Mims is going to take a lot more of those targets from Jeudy and Sutton and whoever their smash, pass, whatever you want to call it, of wide receivers that they had for them last year. Give me a quick sec, but go ahead and talk a little bit about Marvin Mims and what you think about him.
Well, I think you're just adding to this room. I think Marvin Mims is a great talent. I don't see him becoming a number 1 in this league. I think he's great. I think he's instantly going to give you some punt return acumen, which this team, I don't think it really has a punt returner on this roster. Marvin Mims surely can fill that role. But what I like about Marvin Mims is let Jerry Jeudy be a number 1 receiver. You want to do all those gadget plays. You want to do the reverses. You want to do the screens. Give that to Marvin Mims. And let Jerry Jeudy be a number 1 receiver. Let him develop into what you think he's going to be. That true get open, I can be anybody who lines up against me receiver. And let Marvin Mims do all of that gadgetry as a rookie. I think instantly day 1, you got a great punt returner in Marvin Mims. All in all, if Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton don't emerge into a true number 1, it's very much the same receiving core. You got 6 really good receivers. Nobody's elite, and that gets figured out quite quickly in the NFL.
He's a really good deep threat too. Maybe not the yards after catch type of player in terms of making guys miss, but he's got speed that he can just outrun guys.
He's a
hit a seam and he's gone. One of the best players in the league in air yardage, just guy that beats guys over the top just purely for his speed. I'm going to pick things up a little bit because I'm getting a little bit behind, but I do kind of want to touch just briefly on Greg Dulcich. He's a really good tight end. He came in as a rookie last year, kind of toward the back half of the season, and he showed that he can be a weapon through the air. Still needs to bulk up, get a little bit stronger, especially if they're going to be running the ball as heavy as they are. Talk about their offensive line: Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Lloyd Cushenberry, Quinn Meaners, and Mike McGlinchey. Quinn Meaners is now their new starting right guard. Ben Powers comes over from the Ravens. 4 tackles, played over 300 snaps for the Broncos last year. Bulls played in just 5 games. Billy Turner played in 8. Lloyd Cushenberry played in 8 games. Graham Glasgow got moved to center when Lloyd Cushenberry was injured. 7 different players at least suited up at guard for them last year. Meaners and Reisner still played the bulk of those games, but that offensive line was cycling through guys week in, week out. I don't know if they ever had the same starting unit from week 1 out on the field again throughout the rest of the season. It's not a great offensive line, but I think that you take into account that they brought in Mike McGlinchey, who's a really solid right tackle. If they can get Garrett Bowles back up to his all-pro year, like you've got a strong group out on the edge. I think they've got a lot of power on the inside. Like Quinn Meaners, when I think of Quinn Meaners, I think of that big belly, that gut hanging out from training camp. Like just a funny dude. And I think he's funny just the way that he looks. He looks like a couch GM more than he looks like an actual NFL football player. But talk about the offensive line kind of briefly, and then we'll move over to the defensive line.
Well, even with those injuries last year, I don't think they played particularly bad. I thought with the injuries they were dealing with the Swiss cheese lineups that they were handling, I thought they played exceptionally well for what they were given, having those guys in and out of the lineup. I think losing Dalton Reisner is huge, but Ben Powers as a replacement is not a super far drop off. And then whenever you can go and get a guy like Mike McGlinchey, staple at right tackle for the 49ers, who are
healthy,
one of the best lines year in and year out, getting them on a healthy year. That just like on paper, that front 5 I think is very nice. I don't think Russell Wilson's, all those guys stay healthy. He shouldn't be getting.
He'll have more time to throw.
That's what I'm saying. I this is a line you want to be behind. There's some dogs on there. There's some. I like the mixture of young and up and coming talent with the staples,
veterans,
with the Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Mike McGlinchey, and then you got that nice influx of young talent with Lloyd Cushenberry and Quinn Meaners. I think this is a solid line. You got some really good depth too. They drafted a couple guys deep in the draft, but those 5 guys we just mentioned, that's going to be a really, really good offensive line. There's not a whole lot that they can't do.
I think it's going to be much better than people think that it's going to be. I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of these guys haven't played together right next to each other. Like Garrett Bowles and Lloyd Cushenberry have a player they've never played with playing in between them. Mike McGlinchey's never played with Quinn Meaners. So it's whether or not they're able to establish that camaraderie early in training camp. Moving over to the defensive line, they don't really have a star anywhere on the edge, but they have some good young players. It's a good group. It's not great. It's stronger on the interior. You're going from Draymond Jones, who was their best defensive lineman last year, to Zach Allen, a little bit of a downgrade. Allen had 36 pressures and 6 sacks for a really terrible Cardinals team last year. He ended up bailing as soon as they even got worse. It's still not Draymond Jones, 45 pressures, 7 sacks. Probably a slightly better run defender. Draymond Jones goes over to the Seahawks. Probably one of my favorite interior defensive linemen. For them to lose is nothing but good for the Chargers. And then the biggest question mark is going to be whether or not you can get any health from Randy Gregory. When he's healthy, he can be a blue chip pass rusher. The problem is he's only played over 500 snaps once in his career. His health draws this group back quite a bit. Like when he's not available, it creates a lot of issues for them. Baron Browning was a middle linebacker, got moved out to the edge. He's one of those young ascending players, one of those players you're expecting to take the leap. He's kind of in that group. They also got Nick Bonito there. I like DJ Jones and Frank Clark. I don't know if Frank Clark moving on the interior, playing more over the tackle is going to work out too well for them. I think he's a little washed for what you want to get out of him. That's probably why they moved him on the interior, let him use some of that strength. He's still got that big body. I just don't know if, it's an upgrade from who they had over there last year. What do you think about this pass rushing group and this run defense and on that defensive line?
We're looking at the defensive line. Bradley Chubb is going to be missed, right? Like when we were talking
a huge
about
miss for them.
The Peyton era, they had Von Miller in his prime, absolutely wrecking it. One-man show. Doesn't matter where he lines up, he's getting to the quarterback. I think they were getting that in Bradley Chubb, a little different type of guy, a true D-end, hand in the dirt, bigger guy. I think a lot more versatile against the run than Von Miller was. But either way, you lose him and you replace him with Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory is a hype guy. You're just believing in him because you see flashes from him and you're like, oh yeah, he can replicate that over a 16-game season. He can't.
You're not gonna get 16 games.
He can't.
He played 187 snaps for them last year. Like that's terrible.
And at some point in people's careers, you have to like get rid of the the draft day hype and the draft day projections of like what we want to see them, and then view them like Randy Gregory is a veteran in this league. We know what we're going to get from him.
Old.
He's going to give you 2 really great games, and he's not going to be able to play the rest. So I'm looking at this D-line room very similar to how I look at the receiver room. Very stacked, a lot of good guys. You got a lot of good influx of veterans and young guys up and coming. You got no superstar. Draymond Jones, your heart and core, I think, of your first phase of defense last year, gone. DJ Jones, in my opinion, is not the replacement there. Zach Allen, you got Frank Clark. Those guys are leaders. I don't think this to me, Pat Surtain is the leader of this defense. I just don't see Zach Allen and Frank Clark being able to.
They're missing a blue chip pass rusher. They're missing their
they don't have the guy.
They're Von Miller. You're right. Like they don't have the leader of this pass rushing group on this team this season. He's just not there.
I agree with that, and also like getting Baron Browning, going and signing Frank Clark. I think it really cripples your future. And Nick Benito is now 3rd at outside linebacker on the depth chart. Like I think Nick Benito, you need to develop that guy. And I feel like with this current roster, that man's not going to get anything more than special team snaps. And that guy's I'm more interested in Nick Benito snaps over Baron Browning and Frank Clark snaps.
Baron Browning was second on their team in pressures last year. I think that they have a good rotational pass rusher with Baron Browning, but he's going to be their starter next year. And I think that next year you're going to see them go and attack a high-end edge rusher because it's
the
identity of who the Broncos have always been. Getting after the quarterback, DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, like those.
DeMarcus Ware is who I was forgetting. Yeah, they've always had one.
Yeah, I think their leaders on this team is going to be at linebacker. I think Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton are exceptionally good.
Those are good guys.
Linebackers. Josie Jewell is one of my favorite linebackers. He's a guy that I go after in fantasy if I ever play IDP. He's one of those first guys I target because he just stacks on tackles. Alex Singleton last year did too. 118 tackles, 11 missed. That's 6%. That's an insanely good number. Josie Jewell's a little bit higher on that group. I still think this is the best linebacking duo in the NFL right now on the interior.
Yeah. Well, and not a lot of teams run 4 linebackers, so I don't think we have a whole lot of 2 true inside linebacker tandems. Am I wrong?
And they're a group that does it. So what they'll do is they'll go they'll have two linebackers out there and they'll put Singleton out in the slot and let him, cover a tight end. They're okay with, Singleton or Jewel covering tight ends. They don't really have too much of an issue with it. You take a look at it. I mean, they're allowing a reception on 8% of their targets, but Alex Singleton only allowed 350 yards on 66 targets on 54 receptions. So he's keeping everything kind of in front of him low and not giving up too much. Josie Jewell is much worse in coverage. He ended up giving up double the amount of yards on 6 more receptions. So that's who you're targeting in the passing game. Closing out, I need to kind of get moving here because my wife's trying to leave. I do want to talk a little bit about the Broncos' depth in the secondary. Patrick Surtain, you already talked about him, one of the best young cornerbacks in the league. I think he's already a superstar, probably already in that top 5 conversation of cornerbacks in the NFL right now. Something about being in between 24 and 26 years old as a young star, that's where these guys really pop. Because they're not dealing with any injuries, they haven't sapped any speed away from them, and they still have they built up the mental processor to be able to see route combinations and jump them. And Surtain, I mean, he's burned us. I think he has 2 interception return touchdowns against Justin Herbert in the same game, if I remember correctly. So he's a start. That was him as a rookie. I don't necessarily know if Damari Mathis and Kwan Williams and Riley Moss, who's expected to potentially be a starter, I don't know how they're going to play, but I know Patrick Surtain and Justin Simmons are just an insane backfield duo.
Well, and I'll give them one of the best safety duos. We talk about Kareem Jackson, but Justin Simmons running deep, those 3 guys right there, that is a secondary to build around. And I believe in Kwan Williams. I think he is a legit nickelback in this league. Damari Mathis, I think, is going to give you really, really good upside as a depth defender. I really see Riley Moss getting that opposite starting job after Pat Surtain. I think that's what they want. They're looking for a long duo. And then you look at the back end of it, Caden Stearns can do a little bit of everything for you. You can play both safety positions. You can fill in the slot. This, to me, in my opinion, is easily the best position group for the Broncos. Probably one of their biggest strengths. It was last year. And all they really had was Pat Surtain, Kareem Jackson, and Justin Simmons going for them. So getting some healthy competition in the slot and on the opposite side of Pat Surtain, I think you're going to see one of the year in and year out, they have one of the best DB groups, and I don't see that changing a whole lot this year, especially with the guys they got in house.
So closing thoughts, I think that this team is going to finish better than last in the AFC West. I think that the Raiders are probably the worst
Raiders.
team. I have them probably winning 7, 8, maybe 9 games. Really just depends on how the quarterback head coach duo, their ability to work together and put a better product on the field. I guess we'll see it as we will continue to watch throughout training camp. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you guys next week when we break down the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think that's going to be a fun episode, maybe potentially pulling in somebody else to help talk about the Super Bowl winning champs from last season. So
little teaser.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to get your copy of the Shock Therapy magazine. Zach, as always, thanks for the pod. Talk to you guys later.